I converted to Islam in 1967. I took shahada in 1967.
And was there a particular group that you started with?
Well, ironically, I took shahada at the hands of the first man that was the imam of what became Dar Islam movement. His name was Rajab Mahmud. He gave me my shahada in 1967 in New York.
Was he the one who convinced you to take your shahada?
No. Islam came into my family, my bloodline, my family in 1952, I believe it was. I had an older brother who's 10 years my senior. And when he was like, I guess 17, 18, had to be something like that, because I was 9. At 9 years old, he had me delivering a newspaper in the neighborhood in West Philadelphia called the Pittsburgh Courier, because in it there was a one-column article called Muhammad Speaks. And what the Muslims at the time were doing, they were using that newspaper to just show that, hey, there's something other than Christianity in the world. You know what I mean? So they was using that black newspaper to show that, and I was a newsboy. So Islam, I was around Islam from 9 years old. You know, I used to, because my brother was a Muslim, he was a Muslim at the time, and I used to play with the Nation of Islam by saying, Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum assalam, you know, and just throwing it out there like that, Kuli Balu, Kuth Balik, and all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? But as a little boy, you know what I mean? And my life took another kind of change when I was about 15. And I became a minister of the faith, of the gospel. And my father was a minister of the gospel, and I kind of followed in his footsteps, whatever the case may be. And then I did that for a couple of years. And after high school, an incident occurred in high school where I left high school. I was in the 12th grade, an all-A student, and an incident occurred that caused me to leave high school. So now I'm not a jitterbug. I'm not one of them guys. And I was already in the Naval Reserve. So I went on active duty. I went on active duty at 17 years old in the United States Navy. I stayed on active duty for 2 years, stationed in France, but gave me the opportunity to be in North Africa and Turkey and Spain. And with the little bit of the fact that I knew my brother was a Muslim, I was able to like relate to, you know, the decorum of the Muslims that the Muslims that were in Spain. And I met a young boy about my age or so. We were in Spain, and this young boy was doodling something on a napkin. We were in a bar. He was doodling. And I decided to take this napkin home with me and keep it as keepsake. After I became Muslim, I got out to service in 65. My brother was living in New York, so I was going back and forth to his house in New York, seeing him. And this is how I became Muslim, because all his friends were Muslims. This is where I met Yahya Abdul-Kareem and Brother Bashir and Brother Saeed and even Khala Yassin. I met all them brothers in New York because they were friends of my brother. You know what I mean? But by 1967, he had convinced me, more or less, hey man, you need to be a Muslim. So I said, okay, you know what I mean? So Rajab Mahmud gave me my shahada in New York. And when my wife and I got married and we was moving up here, and I happened to take that little thing that brother wrote on in the napkin, and on the napkin he had written Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim in Arabic. So I had that with me from the time I was in the military. I had the background of the newspaper when I was a little kid. So it wasn't no big thing by Allah's mercy, for me to come into the religion of Islam, you know. And that's how I became Muslim.
So you would say your brother was the biggest influence?
Oh, the biggest. The biggest only because of the fact that, like I said, he's my blood brother. Mm-hmm. And I remember my blood brother. He's dead now, but Allah be pleased with him. But he used to, I guess he must have been about what, 15, 16, like that. But anyway, he used to tie a towel on his head. And he used to put what's it called? What was that stuff called my father had? Began with an M. What mascara? It was mascara, yeah. My father used to use a black mascara on his mustache. So my brother would tie a towel on his head, paint a black mustache on his lip, paint a goatee on his chin, and have everybody in the neighborhood doing this. Your Royal Highness, Your Royal Highness, which come to find out, Salat, you understand what I'm saying? Growing the beard, you know what I mean? Turban, you know what I mean? And he was the only one that was like that. In other words, he didn't get it from somebody else. You know what I mean? So I remember him doing that, you know what I mean, as a kid. You know what I mean? Then when he became a Muslim, he must have became a Muslim. I think he said he took shahada. I think he said he took shahada, and I think he was in prison when he took shahada. But when he came out, I remember him in the street, and I remember the argument that he had with my father concerning the Quran, you know, and my father more or less put him out. You know, he's older than me, 10 years older than me. But by the time I got I guess about 15, 16, like that, you know what I mean? Hey, that's my older brother. I was cool hanging out with him, you understand what I mean? You know, matter of fact, it was through him that I met Malcolm X, you know, right up here on 61st and Locust, where he was living at the time. You know what I mean? You know, but yes, he was the biggest influence of me becoming Muslim, even in my name. Even in my name. Because when you become Muslim at that time, it's not so much in vogue now, but when we became Muslim, we changed our names. And I changed my name to Sayed because his name was Suleiman. And his last name was El-Hadi. So I became Sayed El-Hadi. You know?
Okay. So when you mentioned Malcolm X, did you meet him before or after you became Muslim?
Before I became Muslim, that was he was at my brother's crib up on 61st and Locust, and there was a bunch of them around. You know, I don't know. You know, I think Jeremiah X might have been one of them because while my brother wasn't really a part of the Nation of Islam, he really wasn't a part of the Nation of Islam, but he knew them. You know what I mean? Because they came from gangs and stuff, and he came from street, and he knew them all. Especially when they had the mosque down there in North Philadelphia at 12th and Bailey. They had a mosque down in North Philadelphia, and he was. We had family down there in North Philadelphia where he hung out. You know what I mean? So he knew him, but he never did, as far as I know, he never became